All right, my group, follow me. The last person to come in, just close the blinds or the curtain. All right, so here we have a topographical map of the city of Jerusalem. Right, the city of David, right, is in this area. It actually would sort of continue along this way. Right now, this mountain, what's the name of this mountain? Moriah, right? This is where, right, God begins creation of the world, right? This is where Abraham takes Isaac, right, to bind. And this is where Solomon chooses to build a temple. City expands to the west around this area, right? And you're going to have a wall that's coming around in this direction. We're going to see this wall later on today, right? And so the city of Jerusalem stands for 400 years until the Babylonians come and destroy the temple, right? And begin our exile, right? The first exile. Right, for 50 years, the Jews were weeping by the rivers of Babylon while they remembered Zion. Cyrus comes, king of Persia and Mede, and allows the Jews to go back to Jerusalem. And he doesn't, by the way, he doesn't just allow the Jews. We actually found this decree. It's called the Cyrus Cylinder, right? And it's a decree by the Persian king allowing conquered peoples to go back to their homelands. It doesn't specifically say the Jews, right? But it says conquered peoples underneath, the rule of the Babylonians, whoever they conquered, they are allowed to go back. So we actually have the historical precedent and the actual order, right? That is similar, if not the order, right? An order that is very similar to what is written to us in the book of Nehemiah and Ezra, right? And they rebuild a temple, right? Here on Mount Moriah. Until King Herod comes around. King Herod, he's looking at this 100-year-old building built by a bunch of refugees, right? And this is not fitting, right, the God of Israel. It's not fitting my kingdom, right? I want to make a beautiful building worthy of me and worthy of the God of Israel. And so he builds, right? He takes down. He has to convince the Kohanim, the priests, because they're worried that he's going to tear it down and he's not going to rebuild it. And so he actually has to bring all the building material to the temple mount before they just start to dismantle the temple. And they also have to teach the priests masonry, because only priests could get close to the area of the temple, and specifically the Holy of Holies. Right? But he doesn't just want to build up the temple. He wants to enlarge the whole platform, right, surrounding the temple. Right? So the first thing he does is he knocks off the northern chunk of the mountain. Yeah, that's it. Right? He wants to enlarge the whole platform. Right? But in order to do so, right, he needs to, right, create the platform, and then using a series of arches, right, from the ground level, right, up until, right, we reach our desired area. Right? And now many more pilgrims could come to worship the God of Israel. Jews and Gentiles. And he does this. There could also be a reason, an economic reason for it. Right? He wants, right, any person that enters the temple, right, he has to pay a temple tax. Right? He has to pay the silver shekel of Tyre, and I'll talk about this later on in our tour. Right? But right, this is a lot of income you could make from pilgrims coming in. Now, in the year 70, the Romans come and destroy the temple, right? And they start knocking down the Western Wall, right? Start knocking down a lot of stuff, right? Including the Western Wall. This bridge is part of the aqueduct system that the Hasmoneans built. Remember I said they took the water from a spring in Bethlehem and they brought it directly up to the Temple Mount. So this is part of that aqueduct system, right? And it was also made into a land bridge, right? Mainly for the elite, for the priests, right? Who live up in the Western Hill, right? And if they got to go to the temple, right, multiple times a day, right, from the Western Hill, they have to walk down the valley, and then they got to walk up it. Well, who wants to do that? We don't want to do that, right? And so they they enlarged the aqueduct system to make it a bridge leading from the area of the Jewish quarter today, where the priests live, right? So they had easy access. Right, now the temple is destroyed. Let me ask you a question. What is the Western Wall? When you hear about it in the news or in books, what do people say that it is? Anybody hear that it's the last remnant of the temple? Right? It's definitely not from Solomon's time. Right? If anything, it would be from Herod's time. Right? That's what I thought when I first came to Israel, because you read it, it's Western Wall, right? Remnant, last remnant of the temple. It's not true. Temple is here. Right? See this outline? This is the Western Wall today. So that means that the Western Wall is simply a retaining wall that surrounds Mount Moriah, right? That supports the platform that the temple sits on. Right? This is what their Western Wall is. Right? It was nothing more than the retaining wall, right, supporting the Temple Mount. What is the holiest site in all of Judaism? Let me ask you this. Anyone want to take a guess? No, the Western Wall? Any other guesses? The temple. Temple doesn't stand anymore. You're not wrong. You're not far wrong. Okay? But the Western Wall is not the holiest site in all of Judaism. This is also something I was misled by. Right? Every time you hear a Western Wall, holy site Judaism. That's not true. Holy site in all of Judaism, right, is the Holy of Holies. Right? Mount Moriah. Right? Because this is where the Ark of the Covenant stood. Right? And where the Shekhinah hung over the temple and over the mountain. That is the holiest place in all of Judaism. So why is it that Jews, right, all over the world, they come and they pray at the Western Wall? They're praying on Mount Moriah, but in theory, you could pray on the Southern Wall, you could pray on the Eastern Wall, Northern Wall. Why the Western Wall, and why that spot? The reason why Jews come and pray at the Western Wall is one word: location, location, location. The Western Wall is the closest, most accessible point to the Holy of Holies. Right? It's all about accessibility and its closeness to where the temple stood. Right? You had Jewish traveler Benjamin of Tudela came and visited during the Crusader period in the 13th century, and he talked about how Jews prayed on the eastern side of the wall, right over here. All right, so it has changed to where, according to the time period, right, and to what the situation was like on the ground. There actually is, right, another part of the exposed Western Wall in the Muslim quarter that technically is closer to the Holy of Holies, but it's a very small area, right? It's not very accessible. The beautiful plaza that we saw outside is new. It's post 1967. What was here before 67 was this neighborhood, the Mugabri neighborhood. Right? It was a Muslim neighborhood, right, from people from North Africa. Hence the name, Maghreb. Right? Maghreb is like the area of Morocco and Algeria. Right? It was the Western Wall area where Jews would pray was nothing more than a back alley in the middle of a Muslim neighborhood. Right? It was a very small area, like about the width of this room. Longer, right? But the width of this room, roughly. Right? Now, in 1967, right, when Israel, they liberate Jerusalem, this is just before Shavuot. Right? This is in May 67, just before Pentecost. For 19 years, the Jordanians refused to allow Jews, forget about Israelis, they wouldn't allow Jews to come and pray at the Western Wall, which was in violation of the ceasefire agreement. Right? With free access for all religious sites. Right? So 19 years Jews were forbidden from praying at the Western Wall. They can now come and pray, right, after a war where everybody thought they were going to die. Remember, they're digging mass graves in the public parks of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. They're surrounded by all these countries that are more soldiers. And within 6 days, they destroy them all, tripling the size of the country. It's like time of euphoria. Just at the time of Shavuot, just in time for the pilgrimage holiday, for Jews and Israelis from all over the world, secular and religious, and Jews from all over the world, they're coming and they can pray at the Western Wall. This is probably the first time, right, since the destruction of the temple that you had that many Jews making a pilgrimage to the city of Jerusalem. You had hundreds of thousands of people coming, right, in the weeks after the 6-Day War. They basically moved everybody out used eminent domain. Many of the residents were happy to leave because the neighborhood was quite damaged during the War of Independence. Some were not, but they had to leave anyway. We paid them for it. Right? And we had this lovely plaza. And today this is where the memorial service for soldiers and victims of terror takes place, and it's where some units, army units, will have their swearing-in ceremony. This is where I had my swearing-in ceremony. Now, let's go back in time. All right? I kind of jumped ahead. When the Muslims take over, Temple Mount's a trash heap. Right? Byzantines turned the Temple Mount into a garbage dump. Later, the Muslims will come and they build the Dome of the Rock, right, in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which would be right here. Right? And you have residents of the city. Muslims have to pray 5 times a day. Right? So they had the same problem that the priests had. They don't want to walk down the valley and then walk up the valley. So what they do is they lift up the city, right, on a series of arches. Right? So now it's just a simple, easy, flat walk into the temple courtyard or the Temple Mount. And so and they built these arches all along the length of the Western Wall. Right? The Western Wall from south to the north is around 465 meters long. So just a little under, about 5 football fields of length. And the tunnels that we're going to be going under, right, again, it's underneath the Muslim quarter, right, supported by the arches that the Mamluks, this is really during the time of the Mamluks, right, so like 14th to 16th century, right, you had the city lifted up. The Western Wall, by the way, would be, right, in its natural state, would be much, much higher, right, than what we see today. Right, and it would also be very decorative. You can see these pilasters. These are what these sort of columns are, pilasters. Now, we're going to head out the room, turn left. And I want to point out just very quickly some ancient graffiti. So over here, you see carved into the side of the limestone, all right, the words "fret." This is the motto of the Roman 10th Legion. Right, 10th Legion is the one that conquers Masada. Right, they were here during the war and they stay. They're stationed here after the war. Right, and so you had a Roman soldier scroll the motto. Fretentis means straits. Right, like the Straits of Messina. Right, so there is a theory that the Roman 10th Legion used to be Roman sailors that were converted into legionaries, right? And so at some point during Roman period, you had a Roman soldier scrawl into the stone this, and then the city was destroyed. And then when the Mamluks are building up the city, right, they're taking all these stones from the rubble of Jerusalem and they're reusing them, secondary use, right? So this is a stone that's being reused again by the Muslims, right, with the Roman graffiti on it. All right, so we stopped here. Point out through this glass, you can see the street level of Jerusalem at the time of Jesus 2,000 years ago. It's around 30 feet below us. Right now, just beyond this archway, if we were to go into the women's prayer section, we would be underneath a gigantic arch. Right here. This is called Wilson's Arch, discovered by another English archaeologist in the 1800s. Right, that's the last remnant, really, last remaining remnant of this bridge that brought water to the Temple Mount and that allowed the priests, right, to enter in. Right now, below us, if we're standing over here, you can sort of see stairs. These stairs were part of starts as part of a basin. This basin was a mikveh. Right? It was a mikveh, a ritual bath. Now the size of it tells you that it seems too small to be used as a mikveh for a person. Right? You need more, like a deeper area for water. Right? But we're pretty sure it's a mikveh, so if it wasn't used for a person, what could it be used for? What? Child? No, that's a good guess, but no. Lamb? No. It's not a living object, right? Remember how I said that stone jars do not observe impurities? So by that logic, that means that clay jars do. So if you have a clay jar and you don't want to throw it away because it reaches a state of impurity, you need to take it to a mikveh, right? And then you need to dip the utensil, right, into the water and do the same things that you would do for yourself, right? So that was a utensil. Well, we believe that this was a mikveh used for objects, right, that receive impurities. Let's continue on. This is a brand new synagogue that opened up, I think during Corona they finally finished it. Yeah, the ceiling, right, we have that plastic covering to prevent the leaking from the houses and the drains above.